This is the Unscripted Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to being with us today. Well, or maybe it's tonight. I don't know when you listen to it. I know some of my
we don't care when it is, but
right. Appreciate
we're
you
just
listening.
glad that you're here and glad you're hanging on.
We've been talking about this, church hospice thing for the last 2 or 3 weeks now, or something like that, Bob. And today, kind of bring it to a close with some things just about how to not let let's just say that you're a church that's really blessed to be getting after it and hitting the bushes, and
That is the church.
yeah, right.
When you think about it,
Yeah,
that's
right.
The church does.
Yeah, I mean, we started this group on Facebook called like Church of Christ Sound Congregation Finder, just to be able to find people could find churches that they're looking for. Try to find a church if they're looking for one. And I've gotten several times on there because, like, I'm an admin on this group, and anytime somebody does something like, they'll start eliminating things that they don't want to have. I just delete those posts because I'm not getting in any fights. What everybody thinks is. But one of the things,
it's just sad that you have to put the standard on. You have to put the extra title on there, the sound congregation. Finder.
Right.
Instead of just the congregation finder.
Right, and sometimes they'll get on there and they'll say, I'm looking for a church in, Winchester, Tennessee that's evangelistic. And, I used to get on and be like, okay, by definition, a sound church is a church that is evangelistic. And then you realize kind of you have to, just go ahead and eliminate those posts too, because what we're talking about is these being the church that you need to be. You with us, Bob?
Yeah, can you still hear me?
Your camera went away though.
Yeah, my camera went away. I'll just have to be the audio guy today. So sorry.
Okay.
It said battery exhausted and went beep, and it's been plugged up, so I don't know what's up. But anyways, we'll keep rolling with it.
All right. So
we might get more views with me people not seeing my face.
Maybe so. No, your R is pulsing it's just the R where your name is. So now we just got a pulsing R for Bob. But the idea behind it was just a group where we could create people could find a church if we're looking for something, and then it was interesting how they would delineate. Sometimes we want a church that's evangelistic. Well, by definition, to be a sound church. And what I mean by sound, we say that word is doctrinally correct. In order to be a doctrinally correct church, you've got to be evangelistic. But one of the challenges, I suppose, with that is just getting comfortable with it. I mean, here at Kensington Woods at KW, we've had 5 or 6 people baptized in the last
6 people in the last 2 weeks.
And that's
man, that's awesome. I was texting some people yesterday who I know that had they're playing parts and they're filling roles and they're filling voids that they weren't filling 2 years ago.
Right. Well, that's part of that discipling.
Yeah, and that's growth, and so thankful that they're doing that. And it's like, hey, I know that you saw this person at this store and you invited them to church, and you sat in with studies. I know you encouraged this person, and so good job on the teamwork with helping teach them the gospel and
yeah.
And those are things, man. When you're the person who took part in being evangelistic, like you're connecting and growing with that person, and you're growing with the Lord and with the church in a way that. Just in a whole nother level that a lot of people don't experience, and
you move away from a spectator sport to participating.
That's right, yeah. And moving from the sidelines to getting in the game, and
and it will make you
around right now and cracking helmets.
I don't even want to talk about football right now. But,
I don't think Bob does either.
Yeah, let's just.
I don't care. I mean, it is what it is.
Nope, I don't want to talk about it. Ricky Moore said, well, he pointed at Aiden's Bible and said, you ain't got to win football games in order to go to heaven. And I said, no, you're right, Brother Ricky, but sure makes the waiting a whole lot better when you are winning. You know?
That's right. I just told somebody Sunday night, that's why I'm not putting my faith in Tennessee football. I'm putting it in Jesus.
Right. Well, it happens. Carolina lost, 6-0. Then they lose to a 1-5 team, and that just makes me want to spit. And so,
man. I know, man. We lost to Florida too. It was bad.
But when you think about this idea of what kind of the church, what happens is a church gets on fire, it starts growing, and it's got all these things that happen in the church. Well, that's a blessing. And then before long, we're looking in the rearview mirror at the rearview mirror at the glory day
and seeing members.
yeah, exactly. We're looking at the glory days. We're looking backwards and said, remember when? And that was never the Lord's plan. It was always the plan of the Lord's that it would be now what instead of remember when, because there's this real inherent challenge that happens, I suppose, with churches and Christianity in general, that after a certain amount of time, even and let me just be careful how I say this, because I don't want it to sound any way that I don't mean it to sound. But I have studied with and baptized many people now, and I'm not bragging. I'm not bragging about that. I'm just saying that I understand because of that some of the, I don't even want to say excitement, but the reality of it, I suppose, because when you first start studying and baptizing, start studying and converting people, it's you are going through this faith prove out period, if I may call it that, where.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's
I think I know what you mean, but I don't know if our listeners know.
The Lord tells us to plant and water, and He'll give all the increase. He tells us to go out. Your job is to teach the gospel. It's not to baptize people. I mean, the conversion process is the person's responsibility. Your process is just sowing seed, and that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, because what you want to see is the water. And I know what I mean by that is that the actual moment, that somebody is converted, saved, washed in the blood, added to the church, whatever. And you go through this process to where after a while you're like, you've done it so much that you just have so much confidence in what the Lord can do with the gospel, that then it kind of pulls you away from some of those, you get these, I don't want to say these kind of release of emotions from your inhibitions, because you got these things that you think like, well, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. Well, after you've done it so many times, you just know what to expect. Just know how things go. And it's not that I don't mean to sound like it's wore off. It's like kissing your wife.
Yeah, you're not callous to it, but but you're getting used to seeing God providing.
That's right.
God moving in ways that some people in the church never experience.
Yeah, thank you for helping me with that, because I was really struggling how to explain that.
Well, no, it's kind of like, I'll put the illustration like this, and even though nobody can see me right now, but there's it's fall right now in Tennessee, and that the leaves are beautiful. Well, I'm sitting here.
So are the pine needles in South Mississippi.
Yeah, that's right. And so having missed, 6 or 7 falls in Tennessee while living in Mississippi, like we are capturing everything again as if I never saw a fall before.
Right.
And so it's just kind of a renewal thing, that it's not that I didn't know that leaves never changed. But when you see pictures of it, or when you see videos of it, you're like, wow, okay, that is beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. And if someone is sitting on the sidelines watching someone evangelize, and watching someone help save a soul and teach someone the gospel, they're seeing them do that. But when you actually participate, when the leaves are hitting you in the face, when they're falling around, or you're I guess you're a part of that.
Right. It's the difference in a painting.
Something total different.
Yeah, I mean, like an artist captures a moment in time of God's handiwork. One of these artists, they'll paint a landscape portrait of just what you're going through. We call it the leaf hospice, where the leaves are in their death throes, and they produce all these great vibrant colors. And so you get in the throes of that, and an artist captures one moment in time of what God has done with his own hand. But when you're there and you experience it, you get to see it all. You get to see him fall, and you get to see him change, and you get to see all those things. And then, it's not that you get used to it, to some degree. It's like, but you just expect what it to look like. I don't know if that means anything.
That's it. I'm with you on that. And there's a couple of more kind of ways to put that. It's like if you go out west, you go look at the Grand Canyon and you take a picture of the Grand Canyon and you just get back home and you look at it and you're like, man, that ain't what I saw.
Right.
And the reason is because, God made us to be predatorial. We're predator creatures, the humans are.
Right.
And so the way that you see things,
Bob just admitted to being a predator. Everybody, just want you to know that.
the way that you look at things, you take in so much, and the human eye, it's amazing what your eye transposes to your brain, if I'm using the right word. But you just, when you go back and you want to show your friends and you want to tell them, okay, well here's the Grand Canyon. All I can tell you is it's breathtaking. You walk up to it and like tears will roll from your eyes because it's so breathtaking. And you're trying to explain that to someone about how amazing that the Grand Canyon is, or how amazing this mountain scene was. And then you just feel like you're falling short of it. And when someone sees you come back and report about a mission trip, you want to tell them, you used words like how awesome it was, what a blessing it was,
right,
how amazing it was. And because you're there, you're experiencing it.
Yeah, you're trying to capture an emotion with something that's emotionally tied to you.
Yes. And then you're trying to describe that. And that's the way evangelism is. When you get involved in it, you can't truly describe to the church how amazing it is to be participating in the game of football.
Right.
This is and when you get back from that mission trip, that's one reason, and we've said this over and over on this podcast, but mine and your relationship was forged through a mission trip, and that's when we got really close really quickly. But when you're on the gridiron playing football, it means something to the spectators. They rise and fall with the emotions of watching our team win or lose. But man, there's nobody who feels more of a connection to a win or a loss than the guys that are out there on the field playing. And
so that's what happens. That's just kind of this process you go through, and that, so after a while, it's not that you lose your will to live or your will to win even, but you just get, I don't want to say, I heard some Alabama fans, I'm just going to poke this at you, Bob, but, they showed a picture of their field after they beat Tennessee, and they showed a picture of your field after they beat Tennessee. And now
their expectation was different. That's the difference in 22 years worth of winning versus 1 year worth of winning.
Right. And so, what happens is that, this, some of that stuff is like, okay, we did what we're supposed to do. Let's go on back home. Let's go to the locker room. Let's watch tape. Let's watch game day footage again. And that makes it sound sterile or cold or anything like that. But see, here's the challenge is that the church is a body. The body works together as a system. Like I've got this sore spot right here in my sternum from I'm putting this bed on my truck. And
Jessica punch you there, and you make a rude comment in the first.
No, listen. Let me just tell you something. Like she watches her game, and I watch mine, and I was picking up the bed with the forks on my tractor, and I was tilting it over. Well, one of the forks slipped out and bent the little lip that it kind of catches on the bottom. So I got a maul and went to beating. This is a 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch piece of steel, and I had to beat it back 1 inch into it. I'm pow, pow, pow. I mean, just beating on that thing with the maul for 30 minutes. And, you realize that all these things have to, I thought my shoulder's going to be sore as a bull tomorrow or something like that. Not a bit. It's my sternum for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just the way I was swinging or what. And there's this thing that happens, the church is a body. It's just system that's supposed to work together. Well, what happens when a system, with the idea of a system working together is when it works together flawlessly, it's a beautiful thing. You break records. You hang medals on the wall. If you're Carolina, you hang banners in the ceiling at the Dean Dome. that's just the way it works when you work together and do these things. Well, so I don't mean to take away from the beauty, the blessed, the awesomeness of the church working together. And I mean, I love watching all these new people here get involved in Bible studies and have an evangelist. I mean, baptizing people. We baptized another girl Sunday, from two of our sisters that invited her to come to services, that come to services for the what was it, Vacation Bible School?
Yeah, Vacation Bible School, yeah.
And so, you got all those things that you just consider like, what a blessing, and those things.
I remember meeting that girl when she walked through the doors, somebody invited her. Hey, I'm on my webcam now, or I guess maybe I'm not. Maybe I can get on there. Anyways, sorry about that. I'll try to get my big camera up and going. But there's, that I remember that girl coming in, and one of the first things that she ever did was she grabbed a corn dog at our church, at VBS, and the debate was in a VBS meeting was, should we do food before VBS this year? And that was a thing for her, because she had a little one and she's coming into the church building, and I literally remember her sitting in the floor.
I remember that too, in the foyer right there.
Yeah, in the foyer, and just eating, each of those nights, eating a corn dog one night, eating a hot dog, or eating
pizza, or whatever it was. Yeah, hamburgers.
Pizza, and it's so the people who sit here and think, well, I remember there were new members of our church who were in there who were jumping in and preparing food. I mean, the Johnson family was one of those, and they were brand new people there. Oh, in June. And so then, that was a way of getting them involved. Well, shoot, I mean, they're involved in evangelism, because you think there's some subtle subliminal things that go on in people's mind. And they're like, well, that was just another way it wasn't that, oh, our church does hot dogs and your church don't, or our church cooks corn dogs better than your church. But what it did.
You mean heat them up better than your church?
Yeah. And so, but what it did, though, is it allowed her and her child to eat something. And then they sat on the floor. And I remember members of our church going and sitting in the floor with her in the foyer to eat food. There were chairs, there were tables that were available. She just chose to sit
and because of that, now they'll sit under the throne one day with her.
Amen. And it's just like, when you look back, when our eyes are focused on evangelism, then what you realize is like every aspect about it is about that. And that people, they started a new ministry. Somebody at our church said, hey, I want to make breakfast provide breakfast every Sunday morning for people at church. I said, well, when you say every Sunday morning, like that, you understand that's every Sunday morning. Like
that's the ones that end in Y and before Monday.
That's 52 a year. And they said, yeah, we want to provide it. And, well, guess what? They forgot they had to do something on the first day of the ministry. They were out of town. And, but then other people stepped up and made sure that, that the food was provided. But anyways, it's just something to where new families can come and connect and that kind of thing. So
get back to bringing it back around. You got to think about, like, there's this challenge that you look at, the Johnson clan there, for example, or you look at, any of those other people, that kind of bubble up and come to mind, and you think about those guys, and, the inherent challenge with this is that while we're a body, this symbiotic relationship has got to happen with each other. Each one complements each other, the foot, the hand, the eye, the nose, right. All those things. Here's where you have to be able to have the wisdom, as it were, maybe wisdom. Yeah, I'd say that's the right word. The wisdom and foresight to be able to look down the road and realize that, okay, maybe I'm the corn dog maker right now. And that, I'm not trying to take away from the corn dog maker's job, but maybe I'm the corn dog maker now, but I can't always be the corn dog maker. There's going to be a point when, for many reasons, I might not be the corn dog maker. I mean, like, let's just say that, you got them Johnson girls, that are teenagers. I mean, well, eventually they're going to be getting married and having babies. Well, that means that Granny, may have to take over, and Grandpa may have to take over and help out with some of those things, whatever the case may be. But what it means is that you can, in Titus, Titus has this beautiful way that it talks about the church, and that
Absolutely.
older women teach the younger women, how to love their husbands, how to raise their children, all these things. But it's showing the beauty of the way that as you mature, and that's what he's talking about, not just older people, because have we lived long enough now, Bob, to know that age doesn't equal maturity? Can we say that with confidence?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about people that are maturing in the faith. You help those behind you to kind of slide into your gap, to slide into your spot. And that's the way that the Lord wants it to be, because what happens is, let's just say your church has been struggling. Okay, there's a lot of you out there. Let's just say that you're getting all these ducks in a row and they're quacking, and you got all these things, for your congregation specifically. How does it work? How does it do these things? I mean, you mentioned one of the guys, there was one guy last week that he's a barber. I baptized him in March of 2020. He's been
in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, he's been telling people about Jesus every time he sit down in his barber chair. Well, we've studied with people he's brought and this and that and other. Well, he hit it just right. A guy needed some help, needs some beds, kind of a unique situation of not having to change living situations. Anyways, so Don invites him. Jerry, another one of our members, makes the beds. For him. He's got this little process where it's like $70, $80. Do you remember how much it was? Wasn't it like $60, $80 like that, Bob?
No, but it was a bed ministry. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyways, he makes these are nice beds. This ain't like, some kind of Bobo's, cinder blocks and you're sitting on, a sheet.
You got a spring.
Yeah.
Into
Right.
rib.
Exactly. Like sleeping in Honduras. But Honduras is a great place. Come with me. But but it's this, Jerry serves him, and another one of our members told me, he said, look, I want to learn how to teach people the gospel. I said, okay. So, I took Don and Jerry and Randy, the guy that wanted to learn, and we taught him the gospel, and Don baptized him. So Don invited him, Jerry served him, I taught him while teaching somebody else, and then Don immersed him into Christ. And so, but while that's the case, Don, he's an inviter. He can talk to people about Jesus. Jerry is a server. All those things are important components, but there's a powerful component to this that you have to be able to see down the road. And this is biblical. I want you to see this biblically. Look at me.
Absolutely. And what as you're turning to
Acts 4.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Acts 4, you look at Acts 6, that as we, Philip was, everybody in the church is expendable.
Amen.
And that's what you have to learn, is the fact that the church has been going for 2,000 years. We had a unity area-wide singing Sunday night. Man, awesome, having all these congregations coming together. Well, I'd hit them up and said, hey, what can I do? And they had pre-selected song leaders from different congregations, and then they said, hey, can you lead a prayer? And I said, absolutely, whatever you need. Well, I had other people that were coming up to me afterwards, and they're like, man, why didn't they have you lead a song? I wish they'd had you lead a song. And it's like, well, was my prayer that bad? And so when they're just, all they're doing is they're just talking about talents. And so, here's the bottom line, is that Bob's been gone for 7 years and songs have still been going on in Franklin County.
That's right.
And so you don't have to have me to lead a song. And there's the church is going to go on, and so everybody's expendable. And when you look there in Acts 6, that when Philip and them were first chosen, they're chosen to wait tables. And
well, look at Acts 4 first. Let's look at Acts 4, because that this priest, I think it's a powerful component to look at this, because in the infancy, the church is started through evangelism. We may say preaching of the gospel or whatever you want to say, but it was started through Peter and the apostles speaking up and telling people about Jesus. Now, they had a big old audience they were doing, and we would call this preaching, because it is. Peter's, preaching is kind of this, public discourse, as it were. And So Peter's preaching the gospel. He stands up and 3,000 people, Acts 2:41, step out of the crowd. Acts 2:47, the Lord continued to add to the church daily. All those things continue to happen. So what you see then is that Peter being evangelistic, doing these things, the church is going to grow and grow and grow. Well, it goes from 3,000 to 5,000. And then if you get to Acts chapter 4, you go through this period of watching Peter and John, and kind of the trials are going through. But at the end of Acts 4, it's kind of a weird break. You probably shouldn't even really break it there. You probably should really break it about, chapter 4 should probably be broke about verse 32, between 31 and 32, because 31 ends the scenario with Peter, and being imprisoned and all that, getting released. And then 32 picks up with kind of this benevolent aspect that the church has together. And so, 32, look at what it says in verse 32 of Acts 4. Now the multitude of those who believed were of one heart, one soul. Neither did anyone say that anything he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common. And verse 33, with great power the apostles gave witness to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. Great grace was upon them. And then we get down to verse 34. Verse 33, 34. Now there was anyone who lacked, for all those were possessors of land or houses, sold them, brought the proceeds of those things that were sold. So you're showing this kind of communal sharing. I don't mean some kind of communist garbage. I'm just saying this way that the church shared together to be able to get the church kind of get its traction, to be able to start moving forward. In verse 35, and they laid them at the apostles' feet, and they distributed them to each one as anyone had need. This is actually where we're introduced to Barnabas here in verse 36 and 37. Barnabas has a piece of land. He's a Levite in Cyprus. He sells it and brought it. So verse 35, the apostles are taking it and they're distributing it. Verse 37, he brings it to the apostles' feet, and they take it and distribute it. So verse 35 and verse 37, you're seeing this explicit picture of the nuts and bolts. Can we say that? The logistics of how things are going to be distributed. Is that a good way to say that? Bob, would you say that?
Yeah, and I would imagine that when Barnabas bought that land or when he inherited or whatever, he thought, man, I'm going to keep this land forever.
Yeah, it's on Cyprus.
You think about America, and how many people own land and how, things cost or whatever. I mean, when... we're supposed to close on our house in Petal next week. Well,
are y'all coming down for that, or are you going to do it E5?
Yeah, we're coming down. But but when we did, because we had to get some things. But I mean, I'd planted potatoes, and
right.
So when you plant potatoes, you're planning on staying,
right? Right.
And so, I would imagine that, I don't know if Barnabas planted potatoes in his area or what, but I'd imagine that at some point in his life, he thought, man, I'm going to live right here forever. And then there comes a transition point in his life where he gives up that land because he sees that the cause is far greater. And I'm not telling you to give up your land for Jesus, but here's what I am telling you is you need to use your land for Jesus. Well, and whatever God's blessed you with, you need to utilize it. And are there things that I'm not purposefully using that need to change? And as you think about it, like Barnabas' whole thing had to shift. Well, if he would have held on to that land, he'd probably had to take care of it. When he's giving it up, now he's able to go with Paul, and then he's able to take and do his own missionary journey later.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many doors that are going to open up from this, and so Barnabas has to make this transition. He's a Levite. Right? And so he would have been part of the priestly tribe. And all of a sudden, Barnabas is not part of the picture as far as Judaism is concerned anymore. And so Barnabas has to make this transition when he becomes a Christian. Now, you're going to see Barnabas as this great, he is an essential part of the New Testament church in the first century with it growing. But here's a powerful thing I want you to see. In verse 35 and verse 36, 35 and 37, it's the apostles. The apostles are the ones. Now, these are the guys all the way at the top, right? The ones preaching the gospel, the ones that are standing on trial, the ones that are, they're praying so much the blooming house is shaking, right? So verse 35 and 37, they are in the throes of distribution. They're in the throes of making sure the breakfast gets cooked on Sunday morning. They're in the throes of making sure that the corn dogs get heated up at VBS. They're in the throes of all this stuff, right? But the church, when it's doing what it's supposed to do, it's going to do this thing. Look at what happens in Acts 6. You alluded to this, but let's look at it and see what happens in Acts 6. Now, this is just 2 chapters, really, right? And I believe it should be 1 chapter. I'm just saying that Chris's opinion. You know, I think 32 should be the beginning of Acts chapter 5 because it's this whole scenario with Ananias and Sapphira and, you know, kind of the way the church is outpouring all this stuff. And then in Acts 6, you know, you have this scenario of verse number 1. We've talked about this before, but I want to key in on another element here. Now, in those days, when the numbers of disciples was multiplying, there rose a complaint against the Hebrews by the Hellenists because their widows were neglected in the daily distribution. That's the apostles giving out the food. You know, the apostles are the ones that are, you know, like you said in 35 and 37 of chapter 4, they're the distributors. You know, however they'd work that system out, they're the distributors. Then the 12, that's the apostles. It's kind of one of those terms just to grab who we're talking about. The 12 summoned the multitude and said, okay, we'll fix the problem. Okay, we'll go ahead and come up with a sign-up sheet. Okay, we'll go ahead and make this new kind of scenario where we create a committee. Did they do that? No. They said, you guys got to understand something. Before they even talk about how to fix the problem, you know, they're going to fix the problem, but they're going to leave it to the people to fix it. But they say it is not desirable that we should leave the word of God and serve tables. Now, Acts 4, that's exactly what they're doing. And you can see that trickle down all the way to Acts chapter 6. They're leaving the word. They say, okay, here we go, guys. You've got to understand something. Yes, the Hellenists are being neglected. We got to take care of that. However, it's not our job anymore. And that's not a haughty, you know, what do you call it? Self-righteous, you know, like I'm better than you, anything like that. Jesus had taught him clearly, you're going to have to wash feet. If you want to be part of me, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. You're going not just your hands, but all of you is going to have to get filthy at some point. So it's not that they're saying, hey, we can't do that anymore. We're above being the bus boy. What they're saying is now, church, there are things that we've got to do that we can't, we've got so many other things we got to do that we can't do that anymore. Peter, the apostles, we had to grow out of that position so that you can grow into that position. So somebody's got to be the corn dog warmer right now.
Yeah.
But you can't be the corn dog warmer forever.
That's right. And so somebody else has to do that. And that word is not desirable, the New King James. The original word there is it's not pleasing. It's not a reason.
It's not conducive.
Exactly.
It doesn't provide the most conducive environment. What it'll do is it will hinder something else.
He said that we should leave the word of God to serve tables. Well, and the reason at that time is because there wasn't other people to serve the word of God accurately. And so there had to be this training of these people. Eventually, you know, Stephen's gonna leave the table. Right. He's gonna give up his table job to preach the gospel. Philip's gonna give up his serving table job to preach the gospel. And so everybody's expendable. But what we have to be doing, and I think this is where you originally want to go with this, is that we have to be training somebody to take my job.
That's right. And so that's what you ultimately got to see is that no matter where you're at right now, let's just say that you're at this point spiritually, okay? And I got my hand, you know, I got my, not when you consider I'm sitting down. and you're at this point spiritually, and this person is here spiritually, right? Well, that person has got to, you can't always stay here because that means you're not growing. You know, to get here,
you're the person who has just served ice and brought the ice and just served ice for the last 35 years in the church. Well, that's an okay thing, but you should not just be. That shouldn't be the only thing that you're doing is bringing ice and serving ice. Is that you need to say, hey, won't you come with me and let me show you how I do this? There's a lady in the church, and she's still at the church I grew up in. Well, she used to always fix these homemade yeast rolls for the homecoming meal. And so, you know, well, cooking 120 rolls is a pretty big thing, and you gotta make them.
Was that your count?
Huh?
Was that your count?
My count?
Yeah, the 120. Was that your lot?
I don't know.
No, was that for you?
How much I could get, but there's but nevertheless, like right now she's on a walker. She can't make the rolls at homecoming anymore.
Right.
Well, what she had been doing was she was training other people to make those rolls. Well, it's a commitment because you can't just make them at home and bring them somewhere else. They'll dry out. You have to make, with the humidity for the dough to rise, you have to make them at the place where you're at. So somebody has to do it. Well, what I'd always do is I always went last in line.
And ate the rest
but
of them.
I was first to go in there to the servants with the kitchen, and I'd get the hot rolls with the butter. So it pays to go last because you get
pays to be a servant. Right.
Yeah, it pays to be a servant.
Right. Well, so that's what you got to see is that in order for a church to really continue this trajectory of growth, that's what we're talking about. All these kind of little lessons we've led up to have continued this trajectory of growth. And
teach somebody how to do the rolls, yeah.
Teach somebody to be the hot dog warmer because it's time for you to move on because we have to realize that ultimately, in order for the church to really become what it's supposed to be, I can be really happy. Let's just say that I'm this great I have all these Bible studies or something like that. That's great. But all due respect to all you brothers that are doing those things, I love you and I appreciate you because I love doing those things too. Mm-hmm. And that's a powerful component to Christianity. You cannot just occupy that hill alone. There has to be somebody with you. And I don't mean if it's a point, then you just got to knock the top off of it, make some room. That's just all it is to it. And so you gotta help this person because you'll need to move into the sage role. You'll need to move into the point to the person where you can start helping people, to see this vision, to understand this concept of really being this evangelistic person. And so, there's just so many things that we forget about these subliminal little messages that happen here. And look at what happens to the church when this does. I mean, you think about this, the apostles saying, we can't do that. We're going to we've got another job. We've got another position, another place that we occupy, another hill that we stand on right now. And verse 3, it says, therefore seek out among you, 7 men, all this stuff. Verse number 5, they choose the 7 men. But look at what happens in verse 7. Because Peter and the apostles didn't say, okay, we'll try to do evangelism. We'll try to do the preaching. We'll try to do the organizing of the church. We'll try to do the distribution. They said in verse 7, then the word of God, then has this tie-in, this antecedent that ties it back to the events before it. Then, or because of these things, the word of God spread, and the numbers of disciples multiplied greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests were obedient to the faith. Just think about that powerful thing that now you're converting the people that convert people. These priests are the ones that people look to as their sage, their person of wisdom, and now you're taking those people and you just think about all the apples that are in those seeds that they've got right there. We just can't imagine. So there's a real powerful component that, I don't know, what you're doing in your congregation, and I hope that you're doing something if you're listening. But just remember that there is a component of the church growing that it will always need and require you to grow out of this spot and grow somebody into it. And that doesn't mean they have to look just like you. I don't know. I mean, if the roles are the same size as they used to be, I don't know if that's, I don't know what that means, but you've got to help that person grow into the person that can fill that spot. It doesn't mean they have to be you. You're not cookie cuttering Bob or Chris back out again so that Bob and Chris can go on and do this other thing. But what you're doing is you're helping somebody to fill that role in that capacity.
Yeah, it was a hard pill to swallow. I made a statement the first Sunday that I was at KW preaching was that, my job was to work myself. My goal was to work myself out of a job. And while no one ever can do the best that, nobody ever feels like that. I don't feel like that I ever did. You can never give enough credit to God. And if you miss the soul, that's one thing about if you'd have looked at Bama fans at halftime and Tennessee fans at the end of the game, it's the same. The disappointment's the same.
Right.
And so when you never feel like that you've reached enough souls. And but the idea though is that you think about this, that because that there's 5 people that have been baptized at KW in the last couple of weeks, you know, there's a purpose for that. There's a reason for that. And the reason is there's people who are stepping in and they're filling these roles. And Chris couldn't have done that alone. And you think about it, you know, you got elders that are out of town.
None of it could have been
out of the country.
Absolutely. You know, none of it. And I can't stress that enough, that it could not have been done, you know, by me and by me alone. I mean, it just could not have. I mean, just if Bob, I mean, you know the stories of most of these people, and I don't want to divulge too much information, but you know, there is not one single person that, you know, maybe I was the one that baptized them. Okay, let's just say that, right? Maybe that makes it, you know, in your mind stitches up something special. Well, I don't mean to sound condescending or whatever, but just because my hands are the one that put him in the water, I'm going to tell you right now, there was a whole lot of hands that touched him in a lot more ways than I did the last 30 seconds when they got wet.
That's right. And there's going to need to be a whole lot more people that's going to lead them out of the water. But when you look at growth, you look at people like Don, you already named his name, but he's immersed in 2020, and now in 2023, he's immersing.
Right.
Then we look at people like Sean Birch, you know, he was immersed in 2018. Well, in 2021, you know, he's taken the role of being a preacher, you know, and then he was immersing people in 2020, you know, and so
yeah,
as you think about those things.
Yeah, Saturday I went to. My neighbors probably don't listen to this podcast, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this, but. You know, Mississippi, we don't have, where I live at, we don't have home inspections. And so I was over at my neighbors. They moved into their barn and we bought their house, you know, and they converted their barn into a house. Well, I was over visiting with them one day and they said, you know, because I have these pesky plumbing problems constantly at my house. I mean, I'm just constantly fighting these things. Well, you know, we was over there one day visiting Miss Dee Dee and Mr. Davis, and he said, they were talking about when they're building a house, and I had some questions. He was like, you know, Miss Dee Dee said, we plumbed that house ourselves. And so every time we have a problem in the house, we have a saying, we plumbed that house ourselves. And that's really the only pesky continual problem. Well,
yeah, there are home inspections there, but you're saying that there's not codes out in the county.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Well, you know, Saturday afternoon, I wanted to watch my football game, and I had one of those stinking plumbing problems. So I go to Lowe's. And lo and behold, I went to Lowe's and I bought the parts and I forgot one of them. So you have to turn right around and go back. Luckily, Lowe's is only, you know, 3-4 minutes from my house, but it's still a headache. So I go back the second time, and lo and behold, I run into the guy that Joe and Alan had baptized. Not Sundays, I baptized 2 Sundays ago. Not yesterday Sunday, or 2 days ago Sunday, but Sunday week before that. Well, I run into him at the store, run into him just in the line, and I start talking to him, have this conversation with him, and he was like, man, I'm sorry I really haven't got to connect with you that much. And you know, this guy lives right in the town of Petal. And so I asked him, I said, which way are you going home? And he said, I'm going home this way. I said, well, just swing out wide and come by my house. So he came on out by the house there. And, you know, we had a Bible study there at the house because he had some questions, and we had a Bible study. And he said, you know, I said, listen, I don't want you to feel like I'm not connecting with you on purpose. That's not my point. The reason that I haven't spent a lot of time with you is because it was so important that Alan and Joe go through this process with you the way that they did. I said, I needed to be absolutely zero hands off. Now you got to think, like, Alan, I mean, he's only been a Christian for 3 or 4 months. You know, he came to us at our blood drive. You know, that's how this whole process got started with him. And now he's teaching and baptizing people. But I said, here's the powerful thing. Russ is his name. I said, Russ, here's the powerful thing. Now that you've seen 2 guys that you work with ask you for a Bible study, talk to you about the Lord, start these conversations, whatever the case may be, they have this conversation with you, and then they teach you the gospel, and you're baptized into Christ, added to the church. Now you know you know that you can do it. You know that if they did it, you can do it too. And you're completely detached from the foolish preacher model that we have in so many places, that he's the one that's got to be doing all this stuff, or he's the really smart guy, or whatever the case may be. You know, you're completely detached from that. And you know, he was just, what was amazing was to hear him talk about Alan and Joe. He was like, man, I'm just so thankful for those guys and what they did for me, and how I've never been anywhere where they would just sit down and show me these things in the Bible, verse by verse, point by point, and make me and help me understand what exactly the Bible's saying. And so and that's what I kept emphasizing to him is, Russ, that don't get caught up in what happened to you, because that's a blessing, and amen it is. However, start looking at what you can do for other people now. Think about
Russ, you got it. Yeah, Russ, you got a responsibility, and there's John 3:30. Think about how amazing that John the immerser was, and he makes this simple statement to his followers is, Jesus must increase and I must decrease. And so all of us, if we kind of have that mentality, it's not that you need to quit teaching Sunday school. It's that somebody else needs to learn how.
That's right.
And so there's it's not that you need to quit doing the ice for 35 years. It's that somebody else needs to learn how to do it. And because you're going to be missed when you're gone, but the idea is that you need to, your role doesn't need to be missed when you're gone, though.
That's right. You don't hold the welcome mat.
That's right. And so we're all expendable. And so, somebody was saying something to me the other night. They just said, man, we keep seeing good things, going on at Capitol Hill. And they're just talking about, how that they're like, how many.
You mean your congregation?
Yeah, our congregation, yeah.
Because there's another Capitol Hill that ain't a blooming good thing going.
Yeah, right. Our congregation, Capitol Hill Church of Christ, yeah.
Yeah. And, clear that one up real quick, Bob.
Clear that one up, yeah, real quick. Yeah. So, we come to the pure Capitol Hill. So, but there's but anyways, they were just saying, we're just talking about how that, 6 baptisms in 9 weeks or whatever, and I said, well, yeah. I said, I also know a place that's had about 6 baptisms in about 4 weeks. I said, so what's better? And then I said, here's the thing. I said, we need to be part of the church that's moving. And these were, I can't say, I personally believe that the person who I was talking to is not engaging in evangelism, if that makes sense to you.
Right.
And so
they're cheering.
They're cheering, and I love the people, but we have raised a generation in the church that wants to come along, and as long as we're together, and as long as we're cheering each other, and as long as we heard a good message on Sunday, and as long as I'm there on Sunday night and Wednesday night, I'm considered part of the faithful.
And I feel like I'm winning.
I feel like I'm winning, and the bottom line is that there are going to be people who are going to die tomorrow. Here's
right
one
now.
thing about it. There are not more people today that are older than you than there will be tomorrow.
Amen.
And so there's people who are dying.
It's like the free food sign, free food tomorrow.
Yeah, right. And so John did his purpose, but his purpose was to show everybody that there's something greater that's coming. And so when Jesus talked about John, he said, as great as John was, I mean, I don't know where the verse is at, but it talks about how that everybody's going out to see John.
Right.
And you got it. I mean, he was huge, and there's no way, including the thief on the cross. The thief knew about a kingdom, and he recognized Jesus as the Christ. And as you think about that, well, a lot of that, you can probably contribute a lot of that to John and his ministry because of the well-known that even the thieves know about this guy, because tax collectors and harlots were going out to him, but the Pharisees wouldn't. And anyways, John's ministry was huge, but he said Jesus got to increase, I got to decrease. Well, remember what Jesus said about how great that John was, but he said, he who is least in the kingdom is going to be greater than John.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Luke 3 is that, it says that oh, let's see here. Oh, let me see here. Many people were coming to see John in the wilderness. I think it's in Luke 3, but I know what you're talking about. Where he's literally talking about all the people that were coming to see John in the wilderness, and then not only John. Verse 7 of chapter 3. He said to the multitudes that came out to be baptized by him, and he went into the region, verse 3, preaching a baptism of repentance. All those things that John is doing there. And you're getting to the point where Jesus is, he's talking about John, this guy that, Mac Daddy rock star, he's Elijah's got a John the Baptist jersey on. You got what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And all these rock star prophets, John is the superstar of them. And Jesus says, listen, go ahead again, what you were saying, Bob.
Yeah, so in Luke 3, thanks for pointing that out. Verse 12, tax collectors came out to be baptized by him. Verse 14, soldiers came out to be baptized by John.
That's right.
There's all these people, and they're reasoning these things. Well, then you get to Luke 7 in verse 28, and that's where Jesus brings this up, that he says, Luke 7, verse 28, he says, for I say to you, among those born of women, there is not a greater prophet than John the Baptizer, John the Baptist. But he who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than he. And all the people who heard him, even the tax collectors, justified God, having been baptized with the baptism of John. But the Pharisees and lawyers rejected the will of God for themselves, not having been baptized by him. So Jesus said, hey, even these tax collectors go out to see John. Well, as huge as John was, the great thing is that Jesus says, hey, even the people who are least in the kingdom are going to be greater than John. And so you look at people like John and you look at people like Peter. And so I don't know if I brought this up on the podcast or not, but
well, I just wrote my sermon title down for a couple of weeks, Greater Than John.
Yeah, greater than John. Well, I was talking to a guy Sunday night about it because this guy he's in a position to where he knows a guy who can convert a whole lot of people, and the guy who he knows, I don't know, but I want to involve. Anyways, I want to get this guy in the church, and he's got family ties to the Lord's church, and this guy's a Peter, man, Chris. He is somebody who just everybody gets along with him. Everybody knows him. He's out doing stuff, and anyways, I'm not going to name too much because there'll be people in this county who know who I'm talking about if I name too many specifics. But he, man, I said, if we can convert that guy, we'll convert hundreds. And so I was talking to one of my brothers at the area wide, and I said, me and you, I said, we got a responsibility. I said, you're in this position with him. You work with him. And I said, we need to work on this together. And he's like, yeah. And so I was talking to him, and he's like, man, I just have trouble with whatever. I said, well, look, I said, here's the thing. How many great stories do you know about Peter? And then how many stories do you know about Andrew? I think I maybe did bring this up on the podcast, but the bottom line is that Andrew brought Peter to Jesus, and Andrew left John, and he brought Peter to Jesus. And man, look at how many people that Peter converted. And what Peter wrote to us, Andrew didn't write a book.
That's right. Peter was so important that the Catholics say he was the first pope.
He was the first pope. And
just think about that silliness, But that shows the magnitude. You understand? That shows the magnitude of importance that he has.
But the point that I was making to him is that look at the magnitude of importance that Andrew had.
That's right, and
of bringing this guy to the Lord.
Yeah, there was the missing link there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's why 1 Timothy 2 and verse 2, 2 Timothy 2:2, 2 Tim 2:2.
Okay, I've got real confused. 2 Timothy 2:2.
Yeah, right. Can you say that real fast?
You said 2:10:2. I don't know.
No.
What?
2 Timothy 2, verse 2. 2 Tim 2:2.
Yeah.
Therefore, my son.
This is one of those legacy verses.
That's right. Therefore, my son, Paul, talking to Timothy, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and the things that you've heard from me among many witnesses. So think about what Paul is saying here. Timothy, be strong in the grace. We've talked about grace on here before. You know, what grace did for us. Grace, all these things. It's not just this, check we can cash, but there's all these other benefits and blessings and all these things that go along with grace. Be strong in those things that you understand that the Lord has done for you, what He's done for all of us, what He's accomplished in us. And the things that you heard me tell you, the things that you heard me talk about other people did, the things that I told you a story about somebody did one time, the thing that I saw on Facebook, is that what Paul said there? He said, no. The things that you have heard from me among many witnesses. Timothy, you've seen me do this many, many times, and you've heard me say these things many, many times. Just think about how many times Timothy heard Paul preach the same sermons. You ever thought about that?
Oh, I know it.
You just think about, if Timothy, like I've heard a lot of speakers before that I've heard them so much at like different places that I hear them preaching the same sermons. I know the story they're going to tell and stuff like that. And
yeah, the illustration, all that.
Yeah, you realize that like the reason why they do that is because I can't tell you how many times my wife has sat and watched me draw whales. You understand what I'm saying? When I'm teaching somebody the gospel, I can't tell you how many times, how many wheels she has seen me write in my lifetime when I'm teaching somebody the gospel. Right. And Paul says, Timothy, these things that you know that you've seen me do, these things that you've heard me say, these things that we've done together among many people, you got to do something now, Timothy. Hold it up and never let it go. Nope.
Commit it to somebody else.
Commit these things to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. Because there is one component of kingdom building that we've got to understand, the border. The border stops with me or the border expands with me. And so Paul's telling Timothy, don't be the border of the kingdom, Timothy. Be the expansion point. Be the point where you build the next layer of the wall. And
that's not just to Timothy. That's, man, what an example that we have for us today.
Well, you think about it, that's a perpetuity thing then, right? Yeah. If Timothy does that, then he says, commit the faithful men who will be able to teach others also. That does not end then. That is, we are directly tied. You and Ben and I are sitting in this room together. Well, Ben and I, you're sitting with me digitally. And, we are anybody that's listening to this podcast today that's a member of the Lord's church, anybody that is out beating the bushes, anybody that's doing the Lord's work, if you're the corn dog warmer, it doesn't matter. You are directly tied to this statement in 2 Timothy 2, verse 2. This is your genealogical link back to what Paul taught Timothy there. But remember, it cannot stop with you. It has got to keep going.
Yeah, and that's the men put the numbers into the Bible. Just talked about how you talked about, I wish that Acts whatever was
right. 32 was the rest of 5. Was the beginning of 5.
We're gonna gripe about it, right? But
right.
God didn't put John 3:16 as being verse 16. Some man said, okay, let's do this chapter 3 and verse 16.
Right. But that's just like a page number.
And that's a way for us to remember. And so for us in the church, man, if you're good at chainsawing, if you're good at teaching the gospel, if you're good at
yeast biscuits,
fixing the rolls, the biscuits, whatever it is, it's going to be hard for you to ask somebody to go with you to do it.
Say that again, Bob. Just to expound on that. I know we're getting close on the end of our time, but I want you to talk about that. I want you to dig into that a little bit.
Well, there's a couple components to it. The first thing is one, it's a time thing. The second thing is it's a so it's going to take. I'm going to have to let my life line up with somebody else's. I'm gonna have to get 3 people together if we're going to do a plumbing job at somebody's house. So I got to make sure the homeowner's good with the time. Then I got to make sure that whoever it is that I'm discipling is good with them. So that means it's going to be a little more burden on you. So it's going to be harder on you. On a time component. Then you got whatever logistics. I guess you can kind of put those together. But the other thing that it's going to be is that it's going to take more patience on your part because you're going to have to actually teach them how to teach. And if you don't think that's true, then next time you sharpen your lawnmower blades, don't just sharpen them. Teach the neighbor's kid next door, get him off his headset, off a video game, and say, hey, you want to learn how to sharpen some lawnmower blades? Well, he probably don't want to, but even if you
Still
got
get
somebody
him.
even if you got somebody who's eager to, when you put that blade in his hand, man, you want to talk about you learning a whole lot of things, it's because all we want to do, when you teach somebody how to whittle, you just want to grab the knife and just keep showing them. I just, with my kids, I just want to take the drill out of their hand, because how many times do you watch a kid and they hit the plywood, and how many screws do we undo? And I know that sometimes screws are $40 a box or whatever, and sometimes I know you talking to me about guys that messed up, $400 bits, or
Right.
whatever. Remind me to talk to you about bits later too, off the air. But I may have a deal for you. But then the other thing that it's going to take, so it's going to take a lot of patience for you and those kind of things. But the other thing that it's going to take is, if you actually do this with somebody, is it's going to take you releasing your pride.
Dude, and that's the one I want to hammer home, man.
Because you've taken so much pride in how you teach the gospel. You've taken so much pride in how you sharpen those lawnmower blades, or how you do this ministry, or however it is that you do whatever the great thing that you're doing in the kingdom. And the hard part is allowing somebody to do it and allow them to put their touch on it that's different than what you are. And those are, whenever we say let go and let God, put that into that perspective, is saying, I'm going to allow this to let go and give somebody the opportunity for them to serve and them to do it. And that means, man, I got to decrease and the Lord's got to increase.
Here's something that I think about now, track with me on this. And, when Jesus is teaching his disciples about prayer, and he's talking to them about the honor of their Father. And he uses this scenario in Luke 17:18, where he says, you being good know how to give good gifts to your children. Which one of your sons asks for bread and you give him a stone? Which one of your sons asks for a fish and you give him a snake? And all this stuff. He says, how much more then does your heavenly Father, who are evil, give things to them who ask of him? Well, it's a white space lesson here. All right. What I mean by that is, we talk about this many times, but think about the principle he's applying to fatherhood here with that. Now, I've told my boys this many a times, and I tell them, and you don't really understand this. I'm sure you can see this in Carson. And I even, to be honest with you, had some of that pride with Carson when he was here. I should say pride, but some of that swelling in my heart, with Carson, because I loved him so much. But, I tell them, like, boys, like when I'm doing something mechanical, I always bring Aiden. Whether it's welding, making something, building something, tearing something mechanical apart, I bring Aiden. When I'm doing something electrical, I bring Liam. Yesterday, we're doing for our trunk or treat, because this will air today, and you'll see it Sunday, I reckon. We're doing a Jurassic Park theme. I built a big banner that, 6,500 years ago, man and dinosaurs roamed the earth. Got it in a Jurassic Park font. Well, I got Karen to make me. You remember in Jurassic? You ever seen the Jurassic Park movie before? They got that little egg, that little piece of amethyst on the end of that guy's cane with the little mesquite in it that they drilled into to extract the dinosaur DNA. I got Karen Westbrook to make me one of those, right? And she's so talented. She poured it in resin and put a little bug inside of it. I got a stick, and I cut the stick. I got a stick out the woods and gonna make me a cane out of it. I drilled a hole down in it yesterday, put a light down inside of it, and I wired a switch to it so I can turn it off and on and make that little piece of amethyst glow, right? And we just got to go over the top with this stuff, when we do it. And so I told, that was a Liam job, right? I sent Aiden out to find the stick, and I brought Liam in, and I tell him, son.
Yeah, Ben, Chris knows how to go over the top, whether it's popsicle bridges or, whatever it might be.
Right.
Let's talk about the popsicle bridge night.
Let's talk about another thing. Here's something to.
No, go ahead.
Here's the reality, right? So you think about this when you're pride. While God requires us to be like children, except you be like one of these, become like one of these.
You ain't inherit the kingdom.
Think about be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So you think about, you got these two dichotomies that you have here, this childlike attitude and this father-like attitude. And I think about this. So you think about this when you're losing your spot. You think about this when you're evacuating your spot. If you're a father, you'll understand this. And if not, you will one day if you have children. And if you don't understand it this way, then your heart's not in the right place. But I want you to understand this principle that I'm getting ready to say. You are really the only person in the world that wants to see your children do better than you. Your children will never meet anybody. They will never meet another person that wants to see them exceed them by leaps and bounds further than anything that you've ever done. Now, they may see people that they want to see them do good, want to see them excel, want to see them succeed, but they will never understand it to the way that you want to. You as a father are the only person in the world that wants to see, in my case, your boys exceed them by miles, by light years. Now, you take that attitude. We can get real easy, this attitude of being a child and all this thing, this humility that boils down into it. But you think about that as a father. When you think about the spot that you occupy in the church now and how your pride can get in the way, you take a daddy that doesn't want to see his son succeed, and we'd look at him and we'd shake our head and feel sorry for the family and feel sorry for the attitude of the daddy. You think about the attitude that you're supposed to have in the church, that person you're taking, you need to set them up in such a way that everybody loved your biscuits before. Everybody loved your little yeast biscuits you were making before. Everybody loved the way you warmed up corn dogs before. But when they start warming up corn dogs,
yeah, right.
When they start warming up corn dogs, you want it to be so blooming good that they forget about yours and are calling the counties around you. That's what you want to do.
And part of that swallowing that pride is, me and you shared the pulpit for what? 3 years, something like that together.
Yeah, almost
4 years.
Yeah,
4 years, I guess.
I hit my 4 mark down about a week ago. So you ain't even closed on your house yet. So 9 to 4 years. Yeah,
but the hardest thing for me wasn't stepping aside to bring you on board to help preach. But you think about how many preachers and how many congregations do you see where people are actually sharing the pulpit?
Right.
Well, when we say that but one of the things we think about how much that we complimented each other, we talk about each other's sermons and those things. Those are subliminal things. Well, if you're preaching today, and if you're in a stable position with the church, and what I mean by that is, you're important. Like I'm in a rebuild position right now, so they're expecting me to be there on Sundays, as far as most Sundays. But the goal for me though is that this Proverbs 22:6, that's on the front of that little podium that's at KW. Well, right. Well, I had Jerry make me one too, and it wasn't for my house; it was for this congregation. And Jerry understands that now that podium that he made for Capitol Hill, when he didn't know it, he just knew he was making it for us, and it's that training ground. Well, there's guys who are doing the devotionals, or guys who are speaking on Sunday nights, and when we're having things in their home, well, my goal again is to work myself out of a job, and so if you're in a stable position though in the Lord's church as a minister, because when we think that we don't have pride in the pulpit, oh man, there's a lot of pride in the pulpit.
I didn't know that I never really understood the challenge with this. Not that I had a challenge with you and I working together, but till I started preaching. Mm-hmm. That there's just this. I'm telling you, it touches every aspect of our lives. I never knew that this foolish jealousy existed so much in this stuff, and it chaps I didn't even know it. I reckon I was just too stupid. But, and that's how Satan gets me, is because I'm too stupid to know that this exists out there. But it's a problem.
There's probably guys who won't listen to your podcast because you spoke at PTP so many years and they've never got the chance to. Yeah. And so anyways, I'm just saying that there's probably, I'm not saying that there is, or I know something personally, because if I knew it personally, I would have to go to them. And, but as you think about this though, there's pride in the brotherhood. And if you're only allowing somebody else to preach once a quarter, then your pride's getting in the way as a minister of the gospel. And so guys, wherever you're listening at, like, take that, commit whatever you're doing to faithful men who will be able to teach it also and do it also. And just another thing too, if this podcast helps you, please share it with somebody.
Yeah,
and
we want to
hit the buttons and bells and all the jazz and whatever it is.
Yeah, just tell people, and you know, I mean, I'm thankful for all the people that listen to it and all the comments that we get, but you know, we certainly want to help. You know, we want to be part of the solution and not the problem, and so we're not going to turn this into a belly aching scenario. We're not going to turn this into, you know, we don't even have anybody in mind. I don't personally. I mean, I can't say I don't have like somebody in mind when we're talking about these things.
No, I just know it exists.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so we want to be a help, right? We want you to know that we want to be a help, and that we want to help the church to grow. And that's what we want. That's why we'll talk about a lot of nuts and bolts and logistical type things here. We may pick and carry on because, I mean, obviously my football team is superior to Bob's, but you know that, I mean, Bob's said it right when he said he's in a rebuilding spot. I mean, Tennessee's used to that. It was easy for him to go back home, but no, seriously, we want to be a help. Right. And so, you know, here's some ideas, Bob, I thought about, you know, over the, you know, next couple of weeks. You know, maybe you create the poll. But, you know, there's all this trouble going on in Israel right now. Maybe it's time we talk about it. Is Israel the chosen nation? You know, where does this stuff come from?
On a little bit in one podcast, I guess 2 weeks ago, but
I think that we probably need to dig it a little bit. You know, talk about some of those prophecies.
People want to hear it, or if they're tired of hearing about Israel already.
Yeah, that's right. But
10 or 11, and
yeah, that's right. And we just need to talk about it, maybe. And here's another one. You know, to think about, like, you know, maybe it's time we have a discussion about, you know, where did we get all the Bible and everything from? Where did all that stuff come from? You know, is that a relevant topic today? You know, is the Bible that you got in your lap or on your phone or whatever, however it sits? I don't have as much of a lap as other people do, but you know, it sits on the end of my knee anyways. Does the Bible on the end of your knee? Is it really God's word from, you know, 2,000 years ago or 3,500 years ago? Is it really the same thing? And so maybe that's a topic that people would like to hear about. But we just want to be a help. We want to be a help, and we want to do it in, well, obviously, you know, we can't do it too complex. We're going to do it in the simplest way that we know how, which is probably to us is hyper complex.
Country boy way. Yeah. So what's something that you guys want to hear? Do you want to hear a topic on Israel or no? There's loads of flavors. I mean, you know, there's this hat right here. Well, it's new to me. Well, I'm excited about it. Well, one person, you know, some people are like, oh yeah, I want one. And somebody's like, well, has it got this kind of band on it or whatever? And, you know, they're like, well, that stinks. If it had this kind of band, I'd have probably bought two, you know? It's like,
well, I can't wear them ones that have the little snap things in the back.
Yeah. Well, here's a logo. Go get you one. You know, there's there's just, we know the Bible's got so many topics, and we're happy to talk about anything. So y'all hit us up. What do you want to hear? What do you want to hear about? What's something you want us to discuss on the podcast? Maybe you've got a question, those kind of things. Hit us up. We want to know what you want to hear, and we appreciate y'all as our listeners.
Amen. And we'll catch y'all next week. Y'all have a good day, good week. Good
This
night.
is the Unscripted Podcast.